Don't start. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. It's 9:31. Since we really don't know, I hate using this thing, but I was told I had to. I don't know the norms, but I know y'all are trying to plug in and that kind of stuff. But if there's any time that you can kind of move forward, as we're recording this, there are several that are out, and we're trying to record this for them, and they'll have a link for it. But we would appreciate it. I think everybody knows me. You know Dara. By the reception, you know Dara better than you know me. And of course, you know Susan. And thanks, Steve. We'll let you know. Steve was here to start us on play, and he is gone to do other things. So, but we're so glad we got the opportunity to come. Tansy is out of town. I think she's flying into this. She's in the air, so as we speak. So she asked us to come and talk based on some feedback from y'all. So Dara and I are going to spend the first hour or less, whichever, talking about School City. We think most of you have an idea of School City, but we're going to try to help you with a few other things. And then Susan's going to pick up, and she's going to go a little deeper into how to use School City for teaching and learning purposes in the area of math. So but we're going to be here. If you have questions, just give us a holler. That's what we're here for. So we're really excited to come. I know some of you asked about discipline, that kind of stuff. If you have other questions, ask us when we're on break. Before you leave, we're here to help with that. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, because I like to walk up and hit the board and then it doesn't do anything. I was doing a presentation Tuesday at school, and I kept doing the board and they go the other way, go the other way. And I'm like, I did. It didn't work. But I think my hands were too cold. All right, well, who are we? Of course, everybody knows you all did sign in, right? Do you sign in? There's a bar, there's a scan code over there. Just make sure that you scanned in, QR reader, QR code. Just make sure you scanned in and get credit for being here. That just dawned on me. All right, you know who we are, our vision, our mission, our values, our non-negotiables. We had victory yesterday with Dr. Jones and the principals and everything we met. We've done a pretty good job. We understand the vision and mission. We know what our core values are, our non-negotiables. We've talked a lot about above the line. Let you in on a little secret that this year Dr. Jones is really going to focus on this results pyramid that's down here in the corner. If you haven't spent a lot of time, it's real hard because most of us stick it in the corner and it's a real small pyramid. Honestly, this is really where the rubber hits the road. I've been putting this into my presentations that I've been talking about with CCRPI, even trying to hit a little bit more, because Dr. Jones met with the cabinet last week and really hammered it home with us. It starts experiences, beliefs, actions, results. Well, remember, your experiences lead to your beliefs. Beliefs result in action, or lead to actions, and actions garner results. Honestly, what we're trying to do there is we're trying to go from our experiences to gain results. And the key is what results are we getting? So when we do something like give a test, what is it that we're trying to do at the end? What are the results? What are we hoping to do with that test or that block of instruction or the discipline? When we discipline a child, what's the end result? What are we trying to get out of it? So when we make decisions as leaders, we're trying to think about what's the end. What's the end result? So you're going to hear more about that today. I just turned it on. What am I doing? Dara? This is not my clicker. There we go. This is not my clicker, so bear with me. It's kind of sophisticated for me. No, I'm only kidding. All right, so of course you know our strategic map, and today we're working. This purpose of this meeting is really to work on these internal processes where we're trying to become a better organization, where we're trying to get better results. And our strategic priorities today, I would say, from our talk, our stand, our part of it, and probably Susan's too. Susan, if you want to tell them a different strategic priority. I always come and tell you what strategic priority I'm really focused on. For me, it's priority 6. We're trying to establish a culture of accountability for everyone. There's some common misconceptions about testing. If you had me come out to your school and talk about CCRPI, I'm real honest. There's a lot of tests on the calendar. Are we doing a lot of testing? Maybe we're doing a lot of testing and we're not doing much an accountability standpoint. What's the purpose of the testing? So School City offers us that option, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So School City, it's a part of Illuminate now. They consolidated, what's the term? What do they call it? Consolidated. They merged with four other companies, but they kept their identity as School City, and that's what we know it as. This is our agenda. We're going to kind of give you a brief overview of REAA in case you didn't know. Assessment overview, introduction to School City. I'm going to pass the mic to Dara. Dara's going to walk you through some resources, navigating School City, and the report overview. But if you have any questions at any time, stop us and ask us. All right, so REAA, just in case you were wondering what it is that we do, because it's a long title and a lot of people wonder what it is that we do. We have a lot of components, a lot of different things that fall under us. We try to get out and let people know, research, evaluation, assessment, accountability. It's the longest title in the central office, and people kind of sometimes wonder what it is that we do. We're Infinite Campus, student information system, records, data and research requests. If you're working on an advanced degree, a master's degree, specialist, doctorate, and you've got to do some kind of research project, you contact me. I take it to I have a research committee that reviews. For masters and specialists, I generally can fast track it through by just reading your proposal. For all dissertation, I always take it to the research committee. Because what we're trying to do is we've kind of taken that onus off the principals. Even if you're going to do your research in your own school, we ask that you contact us, because one of the things that we're trying to do to be more accountable and to really have better results for everything, when you do research, there should be some reason that you're doing it other than just to get that end degree. There should be some benefit for the district, and we want to make sure that we're not researching too often in the same pool, because that leads to research fatigue, which will give you incorrect results. So think about that for a minute. Everybody wants to go to the highly successful schools in the district and research. I get proposals all the time from outside organizations, and they want to go research at this school, that school. They want to go here. They want to go, but it's always the same 4 or 5 schools. Well, then all of a sudden we've got all the people. I mean, think about it. I'm somebody just asked. I'm ABD. I'm working on my dissertation. Well, I've got to go do my research somewhere. Everybody that's working on an advanced degree, all our teachers, our staff. They're requesting to do these research. We're trying to minimize, or not minimize, but control. And then we also want you to let us know what your research found, because that's beneficial for the district, for us to help decisions. Maybe you found something that we didn't know about. So we kind of control that research part of it. Records management, if you didn't know, we have records that go back to the 1880s, paper records. When we close schools, all those pictures of the past principals and all the trophies and everything, all that comes to us. I've got buildings where I've got all kinds of stuff like that. We catalog it, we keep it. I had a gentleman come about 6 months ago, and he wanted to find a championship football from Lanier A from 1961. We didn't have it, but he wanted to look for it. We don't let him do that, but we did look because he requested it. We handle assessment, all district level, state level assessments. We assist with, help me out here, testing coordinator. We assist with progress assessments and any kind of district-wide assessments, gifted, anything that affects more than one or 2 schools. We don't necessarily get down to teaching level, but if you would like for us to come and talk to your faculty about assessments and assessment writing, we'll be glad to do that too. And then program evaluation, we do some of that, and then state reporting. Any kind of reporting that goes back, discipline, reports that go to the state, anything that gets sent to the board, that kind of stuff we work on. So that's our function. So there's basically, and you can jump in anytime, there's 2 types of assessments. We have summative assessments, they evaluate and assess acquisition of content knowledge at the end of instruction. What did the students learn? We compare that to some type of norm or expectation. If you want to think of what a summative assessment is, think of the Georgia milestones. Did students meet the standards at the end? That's kind of old school, probably when we were in the classroom, since I'm talking to all APs. When we were in the classroom, we gave a test at the end of the chapter. My favorite thing is, what page are we on? What we studied at, what page are we on? What chapter are we in? What chapters is this test going to cover? That's kind of a summative assessment. How do you know, though, that students have mastered that? What does it tell us? It's really a snapshot in time at the end of instruction, and where do you go from there? Oftentimes you're done with instruction, you're moving on. So performance-based, formative type assessment is kind of where we're here today to talk about. This uses tasks for students to demonstrate their knowledge, skills, strategies, create a final product. Typically it's created with a rubric. Yeah, that's performance-based. Yeah. Next slide is the. Yeah, that's the answer. And then we've got formative assessments, I'm sorry, I totally screwed that up. So we've got summative, we've got performance-based, which are like project-based, and then we've got formative assessments, which is really where we need to be, because that tells us where students are in real time. That's the purpose of our formative assessments, our progress unit assessments that we've got. They're designed to conduct in the process of instruction so that we can check for understanding, so that we can remedy the course. What happens if a student doesn't learn something? I think the best way to think about this is a simple task. How many of y'all have children that drive cars? It's frightening, isn't it? You ever try to teach a child to drive a car? I turned it over to my wife. I couldn't handle it. My son, when he was starting to drive, oh my gosh. But that's the best type of example that I can think for formative assessment. Did they understand how to park a car? Did they understand how to merge into traffic? Did they use prior knowledge? That's right. They get in the car and they just take off. I mean, it's a frightening experience, but honestly, that was the best example of formative assessment. When they didn't do something right, what did you do? For me, I screamed at them. But my wife, she was a little more gentle with it. But you used what you got further instruction. When you knew that they were having trouble with parallel parking, what did you do? You went and practiced parallel parking. We do that with our students, sometimes not. That's really where we want to talk to you all about today is how do you, as an AP, help your teachers to do that? One of the things as an instructional AP, and I know we've got APIs, AP discipline, you go, well, I handle discipline, but you still have teachers that come to you and need help. They need your help. They're looking to you. You interact with the teachers. This is really where you can help them because you can steer them with the resources that we have in School City and other places. So that's kind of where we're headed to with our conversation today. Now, this is my 5th year, so about 5 years ago when I first came to this position from the social studies coordinator, we entered into, with teaching and learning, starting this idea of formative assessments. We would give a pre-test and a post-test. That was really honestly what we wanted to do. We wanted to start with a pre-test, we wanted to pre-test all students, and then we wanted to give them a mid-year test, and then we wanted to give a post-test. And that was our formative assessment plan. Well, it has grown into what we have today. It's grown. That's the best thing I can tell you. Because we've changed it. Because we realized what we started with wasn't where we were at as a district and what we needed at to get information. Susan and Deb and Adrian and Brian and now Merja and Asia, they can't help you if they don't know where you're at. They can't come in and assist you with, we can come in, we can think we know what you need, but without some kind of data behind it to help you, and every school's a different place. So that's really when we started. So we utilize formative assessments to support during the learning process, and that's really where we're trying to get this thing to go to. Formative assessment cycle is a deliberative process. It's a deliberate process, not deliberative, sorry. Deliberate process that is used by students and teachers so that there's really authentic, actionable feedback. We know what students don't know, all right? We meet each student's needs. I think of this when you go to the doctor, okay? When you go to the doctor, do you want him to write you a prescription, the same prescription you wrote for the person that you just saw? Or the person that he's going to see next? What's that?
I said it depends on what he wrote.
Well, that's true. It depends on what he wrote. If he wrote them the good stuff, that's right. But, honestly, that's really honestly where we got to think about our progress assessments at, where we got to think about formative assessments. Those two terms are interchangeable. Progress assessment, formative assessment, they can be used interchangeably. That's really honestly where we have to think about is what's in the best interest of the specific student or group of students. If you're supposed to cover, I'm just going to use, we'll just say standards 1, 2, and 3 in this unit, and we find out that these 5 students, they have no clue on standard 3, We don't need to move them on to standards 4, 5, and 6. We need them to understand 3, because don't they build? You would think that there's a reason why they're a standard, why we need them to understand that knowledge. And so we need to help them to adjust our teaching and learning. We have to figure out either we need to remediate them, we need to accelerate them. You know, it's one thing we don't talk often enough about is what are we doing to accelerate students that master the standards early? How are we helping them to grow? Because if you listen when I come talk about CCRPI, at elementary and middle, what's the largest component in the CCRPI?
Student growth.
Student growth, progress, growth. Are our students growing? This is how we know if they're growing or not. And so we need to make sure that we're working with those students that are proficient already to make sure that they're moving towards distinguished or from developing to proficient. There we go. All right. So it's really a cycle, and School City has this cycle. We've done this presentation a couple of times for different groups, and we had the cycle on your left, my right. School City uses basically the same model, and it's really honestly this. We start with introduction, assess, score the assessments, we analyze the data, we create groups, we reteach, we reassess. It's a continuous cycle. You think about it as a wheel; it keeps going forward. Okay, and you keep moving through that. And that's honestly, if you want to think about it with your teachers as you're working with them, where do we fall down at? We get right about here. We score the assessments, and what do?
Move to the next thing.
We move right back up here. So we get half a wheel. We kind of limp along. Think about it limping, okay? I'm older than you, so I would say, there was an old Western where they always had the guy that limped in all the Westerns. All right, that's what we're doing with our instruction with the kids. If we don't come through and analyze through. Then you say, I got close enough. But we like to throw the John Hattie research in there, which shows the significance of formative assessment and feedback, and how important they are in the instructional process. Well-designed and properly carried out formative assessment strategy can result in nearly 2 years of growth in a single year. So if you're using your formative assessments correctly, you're using the information with your teachers using it with students, they're going to grow. And they're going to grow at a rapid rate. And this is based on John Hattie's research. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dara. And Dara is going to walk you through some stuff with School City.
Thank you. Oh, it's two-handed.
Yes, you are. It's just not me.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Well, hello everyone. I'm Dara Foy. Nice to meet you. If I haven't met you before, nice to see you. For all my friends here. We're going to talk a little bit about School City, and I know that some of you are experts. You could get up here and give the same speech. Some of you might be new, though, and maybe don't have as much experience. So I hope to at least teach you one or two new things that maybe you don't know or you haven't seen before, or some reminders. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. So for our formative assessments or our unit assessments, we did go partner with School City. And School City is a comprehensive assessment system which has reporting and analytics so that you have immediate access to reports as soon as they finish testing. And then also we can create assessments at the district level, but also your teachers can create individual assessments. And I can tell you from the questions that I get that your teachers are more and more this year really into creating their own assessments. So they're doing assessments in their own classroom. They're even creating some retests for some of the assessments when the children need to retest over an issue. So they really are creating their own tests, and it really is being very helpful. So more of that. There is training available for all of that information. Some of the things, so you can build and administer assessments with instant access to results. It has pre-built reports, but you can also customize reports if there's information that you need that they don't have. You can analyze your data with easy visualizations, and it comes in different forms, however you choose. And then once you get your results, you can personalize instruction.
And it's important that these are different than the data visualizations that are inside of the campus that's created for the private class, the visualizations that we're talking about.
Correct.
Don't think those are the ones that are on campus.
Correct. All right, so when you look at School City, You can follow along if you have your laptops with you today. Feel free. The staff login is going to be here at the bcsdk12.schoolcity.com. This is going to be for you and for teachers alike. It's always going to be the first dot last name. This year it changed slightly, so I do get lots of phone calls this year that it's your name as you log into Infinite Campus. So let's say your name is John Smith, but you log into Infinite Campus as Johnny Smith. It's going to be Johnny Smith, Johnny.Smith. So that kind of changed. So make sure that if you have a new teacher or a teacher hasn't been in a while, they can't log in, what do they log into Infinite Campus with? So that changed this year. The password is a generic password, so I didn't want to put it in a PowerPoint, you know, and this is being recorded for people that are not here. If you don't know what the generic password is, just ask me when we're through and I will tell you. You can write it down. Whenever you I reset a password, it's going to be the generic password. If a teacher resets their own password, it's going to send them a private, unique password and a link in their probably junk file. But if you don't know what the generic password is, just ask, and I'm glad to share that with you. So there also is a student portal. Both of these are in your class link, but you do have to choose staff or you have to choose the student portal. And for the students, the login is always going to be their lunch number, as it is in Infinite Campus. And their password is going to be their full birth date. And so the biggest thing that we have problems with is the slash marks are forgotten, and then 4 digits on the birth. If you put 09, will not log in. So it's all 4 digits on the birth date. So if there is an issue, the problem is they either aren't doing the slashes, or they're doing dashes, or they're doing 2 years on the year. But that's at online.schoolcity.com/bcsdk12. So I just want to give you kind of a comparison so you can see that there's a faculty website and a student website. Yours is blue, theirs is green. So if you see green and you're trying to log in, you have a new teacher, and they're like, I can't log in. You see green, they're on the wrong place. So you just need to move them. And again, remember that you want to make sure that that birth date contains the slashes and all 4 digits. All right, so we're going to kind of go through the process as you would in a normal day. So when you log in as a faculty member, it's going to come up this screen. It's going to look something like this. These are the flip cards here, and you can move those around. So yours may or may not look like that, but we're going to talk about that in a second. But if you aren't familiar, you can click on one and drag it and move it. You can actually edit it and change the color. If you have one that you like better, or a pattern, you can make that. But this is what it's going to look like. So we're going to kind of talk about a couple things. And I realize that you're kind of far away, so you might not even see this. So I took snippets and blew them up. So up here in the top left, when you log in, and if you're trying to help a teacher, God bless you. There we go. So up in the top left, you're going to notice that here it says School City Suite Teacher. So you might have somebody that is a teacher user or a school user. You may see scanning, and scanning usually means that it's a PC teacher that has no class attached to them, so they don't have any rosters. And as we start out, we usually start out with scanning rights, which means they can't really do anything but just kind of look at it. So when you look up there, if you see anything different, like if it doesn't say school and you're a test coordinator or an AP, then maybe you've logged in or we haven't changed you if you're new. So that's where you can look to see what is your role in School City. And also up here is the school that you're assigned to. And if you have more than one school, you may need to switch it. So like for the folks at SOAR Academy, they could click here, but let's say that they transfer from SOAR to Adolescent Services, then they may have 2 schools, and that will tell them what school they're under, so you can always check there. All right, next, we're talking about the gear icons. The gear icon is where you're going to go to change these flip cards. So here you can see that I've got assessments, print answer sheets, score, an online test, reports, my links and surveys, and then you just hit save, and now all of those tabs will show up. If you never use my links, then you can unclick it and hit save, and that card will go away. So you may notice, like when you look at your screen, you may have only 4 tabs up. You may have more things available to you, and this is a quick way to get to things. If you need to go to assessments, you can just go here to assessments, click on it, flip it over, and then go to where you need to. You can always go up to the top, we call that the hamburger or the waffle. So you can go to the waffle at the top, and everything will show down in the launch pad there as well. So you have your options of how you want to navigate around. And then lastly, up here at the top, this is the notifications and the help icons. So we're going to go through the first two of these as we go through the presentation. So the first thing is the notifications. That's a little bell up at the top on your right. When anyone shares an assessment with you or anyone else, that notification is going to change. So you notice that this person now has 24 assessments that have been shared with them. And I do occasionally look at people's accounts if you have problems, and I can see sometimes you have like 72, 145, because you've never actually checked the bell to see if you have notifications. But when I share an assessment with you, or your teachers do, this is where you're going to go. I see people laughing in the background. You just saw their bell. I will not call you out of it. But yes, some people don't even know that that's an option. But if you look at the bell and if it has anything, a number there, that means you've got assessments. So that means someone shared it with you, and you have the option of adding it to your assessments. You can preview it and look at it, and you can delete it. So when you look at that, you've got a choice between new notifications and past notifications. So if somebody had sent something to you before and you deleted it, then you can go to past notifications. And you'll notice that here, like under new, this means someone has shared with me the assessment, IKL, delete this, IB1. And so I could go from there. Whoop. There we go. All right, so when you are in the notification tab, under the notification, you notice that we have a test here that was shared by Ernesto Whittle. And if I want to see that test, then I'm going to click on that plus sign. It's going to open up and it's going to give me my options. So when I do that, it's going to open up. It's going to give me these options. I can view it so I can see the actual test. I can add it to my assessments, and then I can change it around if I need to, or add or subtract how I need to. Or if it's something that I'll never use, I can just delete it out of my information. So those are the three options that I have: view it, add it, or decline it. And so if I decide that I do want to add it to my information, then I'm going to click on Add My Assessment. And I'm going to change the name slightly, because you can't have a test at the same school with the same exact name. So you can just put a 2 on the back end of it, or put your initials, or however you want to, but change the name and then hit Save. And now it's going to be found in your assessments or in recent assessments when you go to that tab. Or you can decline it if you don't want it. All right, then we talked a little bit about the flip card, so it just looks like this again. Just put the check marks and then hit Save. And if you make any mistakes, you can go right back to the gear icon and take it off or add it and save it as you need to. If you don't like the way they are, like for me, I always use one that's called Administration. It's where I look at the users. And so for me, that's the first card on the left. It's the easiest one to access. It's the one I use most. So feel free to move it around to the one that you use most. All right, the other thing I want to show you is up at the top is the help icon. This is your friend, okay? This blue question mark up at the top is the Help Center. And so in that information, one of the things you can do is you can go here where it says Help Topics, and then it says Help Center. And so that's where you're going to find some articles. Now you want to go to the School City, because again, as we said, that they did merge with Illuminate, and Illuminate has multiple products. So on occasion, if you look for something, it may come up and be a different product, like something in California, etc., that may or may not work. But if you keep in the School City tab, you'll be able to find things, so just make sure you look for that. But this was just, for example, when I hit enter, the first few things was Assessment Administration Overview, activating an assessment without a PIN, activating an assessment with a PIN, advanced settings, and it just goes through all the different articles. You can click on them. You can't really, for some reason right now, which they said would change, download it, which is different than it used to be. But they are live links, so you can copy the links and share the links with your staff. So that's the first thing, is here you can find printed documents that may or may not answer your question. Now, the second thing that's very helpful is the recorded webinars. It shows you the recorded ones that have already been completed and also the webinars that may be coming up that you can sign up for, and of course you'll get reminders like most webinars. They do suggest that you change to Explore to watch the videos so that you can get all of the effects that they offer. If you want to try it in a different browser, that's fine, but if it doesn't completely play right, then just switch over to Explore. So for example, you see here that they have webinars, the UC webinars from 18-19, 17-18, and then things that may be upcoming. And also some partner webinars. So if one of their partner companies has a webinar, they may have a link here so that you can go and watch. And I will tell you, we're going to look at a few upcoming webinars and a few that have been recorded for you. So here's some things that are available. So the first one, you know that the Georgia Milestones this year has changed to the Desmos calculator. And so on the Georgia Milestones, the students will be using Desmos calculator, not the old one that was on there. So we do want to make sure that the children have time to practice with this calculator. So one of the things is there is a video that you can go through and watch. It's created by someone with Desmos, and they partner. The Desmos calculator is the same calculator used on the School City assessments. So that's a wonderful reason for the math teachers especially to put the Desmos calculator available so that students start getting some practice with it, along with some other items, but this is very important. So the Desmos calculator video I watched about 5 minutes of it yesterday, and it was worth it. The ones I watched that weren't, I just didn't include them. Because some are better than others, but some are pretty good. This one I started watching it, and it's all of them are about 30 minutes long for the most part. This one is Distractor Rationales, finding the right in all the wrong answers. So if everyone is missing question 2, you can go through question 2 and tear it apart and see why are they missing that? What have I not taught right? Or what could I teach better? So I can figure out the distractors that are causing the student to make it wrong. So anyways, this is one of the videos that was recorded in September of 2018, and it's available for you. And I would suggest this one. This is another one, Basic Navigation of 6.0. Now we're actually on 7.0 or 7.1 version, but all the information is the same. So if you're brand new or you have someone brand new and they really just don't even know where to begin with School City, go to the Basic Navigation video, and it's going to tell you the same things I'm telling you here. Go here to reports, go here to find your students, go here to activate a test. And it's basically the same information for you, but it's already built in. This is a good one, predefined reports. So again, School City comes with pre-created reports for you. This goes through the list of the pre-created reports that are already available for you. So if you are trying to figure out, well, what report is best for me to use, I'm going to briefly show them to you, but if you have 30 minutes, it's worth the watch to go through all the different items. Every time I watch it, I learn something new about, oh, I didn't know it would do that. So this is a wonderful video for you to watch, predefined reports. If you find that those reports don't cover the information that you need and you find that you're having to do the same information over and over, you can also create your own custom report. If you want to see this and this item, or compare this item to this item, and we just don't have it, create your own custom report. Again, 20, 30-minute video showing you how to create your own custom report. This is one of mine, my favorites, and we're going to show you just a little bit about student history report. There's a lot of information that you can find in School City, and more information that they're adding all the time about how if you are a counselor, why this might be a good place to go. You can see all of the tests that they've taken, state assessments, local assessments that they've ever taken that we've uploaded to it. You can go through that information. You need to know what class they're in, you can go here. So we're going to briefly look at the student history, but it also is a good webinar to watch. All right, so we're going to talk real briefly about creating assessments. I'm not going to go through how we've done it before. There are steps available. You can get step-by-step instructions. But I wanted to point out a few things that might be some pitfalls for you. For the first thing is you have to consider how are you going to administer the test. Because that's going to actually depending on that, it's going to be how you select your questions and what kind of questions that you are going to select. So the first choices are, is it going to be online or paper? We suggest online. We're trying to save trees, and for other reasons we want them to have the practice online. But you do have some students that for whatever reason can't take it online. Maybe it's in their IEP or 504 or ELTPC. But for whatever reason, so you do have paper also available. So when you do that though, not all questions feed to both of those tests. You have some questions that are online only questions, and if you chose those, all online only questions, or even one online only, and then you went to print a paper test, it will not allow you to print it because it's an online only question. And so you will find sometimes on some of the unit assessments that someone missed that option and you need a paper test and it won't print. And then there's, you're going to have to get a preview and do some screenshots and that kind of stuff. So it's more in depth when that happens. It's much easier just to avoid that and make sure that you get online and paper test questions when you choose. But notice that those things are available for you. All right, the next thing is the item types. I'm not going to go through all of them, but for example, constructed response, where you write your answer, and then you can have scoring events where multiple people can go in and score. So if you're doing English and essays and whatnot, you might want to use the constructed response, or any of the items that where maybe you need to write out the hand answer. Mostly multiple choice, that's fine. There are actually 18 different types of questions that you can choose. So it's something to think about is what kind of questions are we going to put on this test? Or is it going to be multimedia? And then the assessment type, what kind of assessment? So answer key only. Sometimes you already have a pre-created test and you don't want to go in and have to type in all those questions, etc. You can do an answer key only and upload the test. So on this side of the page, I have an answer document that's A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and the different answers. And over here is an actual copy of the uploaded PDF of the test. So they see the test on one page, the answer on the other page, and that's an AKO. There's an express assessment where you can also create an answer sheet. And then the item bank, that's the one that most people do, and that's the one that is more in depth because you have to pick standards, pick types of questions, and set it up. But again, there's videos about how to create an item bank assessment. But things to consider. So when you do go to create assessment, again on the flip card, if you hit the create assessments, it'll turn around. And then you have answer key only, exam view, express, item bank, performance based. And so you can choose that and go from there. But again, videos and instructions are available. Ooh. There we go. All right, but I do wanted to say this. If you are creating an assessment, there is the online markup option that is available as you are going through the items. And some of the things that are available for you in online markup is text-to-speech. You can change it for for the whole passage and the questions, or just the questions, depending on what you mark. And you can also add pop-ups and rollovers. And so a pop-up will come up like when you go across it, it will show you a definition. And then a rollover is like if you need a phrase or a sentence. So you can add pop-up and rollover. And you can also add text-to-speech. So that's one of the options up at the top, text-to-speech. This is another resource, and we use this often in some of the tests that need any type of information, like the writing guide, perhaps, or math formulas, or social study formulas, etc. So you can also go through the resources tab right here, and then you can download information, and then just drag over whatever you need. And so once you do that, you save it and preview, and then what it's going to look like when the student goes in to take the test, they'll have a little resource globe here, and when you click on the resource globe, for example, this particular test has both the Algebra 1 formula sheet and the geometry formula sheet. Student can click on that and then shrink it as they need to, but that could be anything that you wanted to upload up under the tools. Another thing I wanted to bring up that we have issues with is teachers saying that they don't see students. So the first thing is that only teachers of record are automatically assigned to their roster. And so if you are a PEC teacher or a co-teacher of some type, then you are not automatically assigned to a class unless they're in some type of a study group for you or you have them on a roster. So that's the first thing, is that I always ask, is it a special situation? Are you a co-teacher, PE teacher, anything like that? If that's the case, then we have options that we can do. So we can attach them to the teacher of record that they serve, and you have some options there. You can either attach it to all the teachers that they serve. The other option, and sometimes it's the case where you want to have school rights. So maybe it's the PEC lead and they serve the entire building, and maybe that's the best option. So we have to discuss that. We have to have that in writing from either the school test coordinator or the principal, just as a document of record, and then we can attach them. It stays that way until you tell me different. So at the end of the year, when we roll over, if they're attached to a teacher this year, they'll still be attached next year. So at the end of the year, you can send me and say, this is no longer a co-teacher situation, remove her rights for that, or this person is now at the beginning of the year co-teaching with this class, and then we'll just switch it over. But do know that those things are options. Now when that happens, the teacher is going to have to select what teacher they want to look at. So they're actually kind of cloning that teacher. So up at the top next to your name, there's a little drop-down arrow. And when you log on to that, it's going to say My Preferences. There's some things you can set on your account. But it'll also say Change Teacher. And if you click on Change Teacher, a drop-down will come out with all the teachers you're attached to. And then you can just click on the one that you want. It also can have change role. So if you have a teacher, we had some teachers that were helping with the unit assessments over the summer. And so they actually have the teacher and school assessment role, but they also have the district assessment role, so they could post the district. And so if they do that, then they're going to have to change their role also.
So should we have that change? Like, I don't have that change teacher option. Should it be?
That's because you're only one teacher. You're only one person. So you have school rights.
Right.
So that you have everything already. So if you were a teacher or co-teacher, you might have Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Roberts. All right, so, but do know that if you have that situation, just let us know. We can fix that for you. And if you have new teachers, you may want to help them along. So we talked about paper tests and online tests, which are easier. But if you choose a paper test, you have to know that there are two types of ways to grade the test. So this is another issue that comes up from time to time. School City defaults when you go to the print answer sheets. And so when it comes up, it's going to look like this, which is School City. That is going to create the scanner option, or the flatbed scanner. That was at one time, every school had a flatbed scanner attached to a computer at one time. I cannot swear that it's there today because things get moved around, but at one time it was available. And so when you go, if you just didn't change anything here at all, it's going to come out and it's going to print the scanner answer documents. Now you can either do a class roster if you want, where maybe you just want to check things off on a roster, or you can print it by an individual student. Let's say you have a child that's got some vision issues, you can also print it in large print, but it defaults to normal. Gotcha, boss. All right, so the other option is GradeCam, which is like a gooseneck camera, and that's also an option, but you have to select it. So again, it's defaulting to School City, but if you have the gooseneck or the teacher computer, where they just want to hold it up and grade it, then that's also an option, but you've got to select it when you create the test. You can create and select both as you create the test, and that gives the option, or you can select only one. So here's your options: scanning and GradeCam for printing. But these are not interchangeable. If you print an answer sheet for GradeCam, you cannot go scan it in. You'll have to copy it over or have students copy it over. This is the one thing you should know. So if you see these bubbles, that's a GradeCam. If you see the QRL code, that's going to scanning. So when you have a problem and teacher says, I can't score this, first thing is to look is what kind of sheet do you have, and are we trying with that? That's the first thing. All right, let's talk about, we've got the test created now. We've logged in, created the test, we've got it set up. And so now the test needs to be activated for students to take it. So the first thing is to know a couple of items. Is that one is that those activation codes are good for about 30 minutes from the first time anybody logs in. So if you have a unit assessment, it's not just at your school. Anybody could be someplace else and log into that test. And so those activation codes that are sitting there are now good for about 30 minutes. So I'm saying that sometimes activation codes could be good for days. You could activate it and nothing happens to it, and that's fine. But mostly, 30 minutes is the rule. So prior to a student signing into a test, you've got to activate the test. You have school rights, so you should be able to activate for any teacher on any test in your school. And anybody with school rights could also do that. So one thing is they cannot be already logged in. There's no refresh button on School City, so they will not see when you activate the test that it's now available in their backpack. So they'll have to log out and log back in. So make sure your new teachers know that students cannot be logged in. You're always going to have that one little child that's Johnny on the spot. He's already logged in and halfway through, right? And he's going to be the one that can't log on. So just have him log off and log back on. Next thing is to make sure that you're under the district tab for district unit assessments. We get lots of calls. I don't see them because they're either under my assessments or under recent assessments. So if you're taking a district test, you have to be under the district tab. That's where you're going to see all of the open district assessments. So when you go to activate assessment, you have two options. Of course, you can go from the front tab, where we talked about the assessment tab, or you can always go to the launch pad at the top. That's the waffle. And then you're going to click on assessments. Once you get to the assessment tab, you're going to click on the district tab. And then you have these options to tell you just some of this is the folder. If you have any documents, like a copy of the test that's available to you, it'll be in the folder. This is the printer, so if you need to print test tickets or print the test, you're going to go right there. This is the online, the computer, that you're going to go to activate the test, and some other items that may be available. So we're going to click on that. Now it's going to bring us up to a page. So if you are a school user, then you're going to need to isolate what you're trying to get to. So first we're going to find the test. Now, if you go into, let's say you're going to a math test, there's going to be more than one math teacher. So up at the top, you're going to isolate, and every teacher that shares that student is going to have the student show up under them. So like if I'm a PE teacher, I probably teach most of the children. So if I accidentally go up under their name, you're still going to see those students. So just remember, you can isolate it. You can get it down to the period. But one thing I would caution you when you do that, get all of the sections, because one period may have 3 sections. And so we often have, especially in high school, people will call and say, you know, only half my children are activated, the other half can't get in. It's because they have section 1, section 2, section 3, and they just selected one section. So we're going to do that. This is the activate all. When you check here, everybody that's on that page will mark up, and then you can just hit activate with a pin. Once that happens, this number right here is going to roll and give you a 4-digit pin. That pin's good for 30 minutes. If, let's say, one child's absent, then it's going to, obviously, it's going to expire. And so tomorrow when you come in, you would just put a check mark by that one student, and then just activate with a pin, and then that number would change. It would be a different pin number. That's the way it's going to work probably 80% of the time. Now I say that because if anything is highlighted in a color other than gray, which means nobody's logged in at all, then you can't activate everybody because there's different things that may need to happen depending on what status they're already in. So for example, this was a good example of a page. When I went to this page, I've got 2 students that are completed. One was reactivated, one's exited, they answered 1 question. One's incomplete, they've only answered 1 question, and one's in process. Depending on what happened to them is what I have to do to make it work again. So when I do that, I may have to inactivate it, pause it, resume it, reactivate it, stop it, or submit the scores without going further. So one easy way to do, click on any one of those colors, and it's going to automatically sort it for you. So if I want all the ones that are completed, I want to see who's finished. click on the green, all the ones that are completed will show up. That lets me know these are the ones I don't need to worry about, or yes, he did finish the test. When I want to go back, I can just click on the blue all, everybody shows back up in all colors. So again, depending on what you have at the top, those are the colors, that's the things that you're going to have to do. And when you are giving unit assessments, your teachers should be coming back to this page, because you know and I know that one of the things kids do is they don't sign out correctly. So it doesn't get scored. And so you'll have 30 children with scores and one child that doesn't have a score, but you know they tested. But when you come here, you'll find out that they exited. They didn't submit it. So have your teachers get in the habit of just going back and checking, because it only takes a second to pull it up and say, oh, you need to go in and log back in. But if it's been an hour, are they going to be able to use the same PIN number? No, that's right, it's 30 minutes. So you're going to have to reactivate it, then have the child log back in and submit it like they should have. Same thing with milestones. All right, so we've tested. Now we want to look at the report options. Anything that has a blue color to it is a hyperlink. It goes to something else. So like when you're looking at a student's name, if it's in a blue, you can click on it, it'll take you to the student. So let's look. One, printed directions are available, and there's also webinars that are available. But up at the top of the Launchpad, you can click on Report Manager and the report or the report folder in the front. And then from the toolbar, these are the ones that you're going to normally look at. So typically, you're going to look at the predefined. That's the one that when we look at reports that we normally look at. Other items that are available is a class roster. If you want to see all the students in one teacher's class or where that child is, you can pull it up by class roster. That's how I know if a teacher is in and how many children they have. Because sometimes I'll look at a class roster and they'll say they only have 13 students. You look at Infinite Campus, you find out that they took over another classroom and they changed the name on the class, but they didn't change the back end of who is the teacher of record. And so that has to be changed. So this is a quick, easy way to see what the problem is. This is where you could create custom reports or a pivot table. Anthony Blasingame is the expert. I'll throw him under the bus. If you need for the pivot table, he's your man. And then these are some of the other reports in student history, and we'll talk about that separately. So when you click on predefined, it's going to come up something like this, and I realize that you can't see too much of it, but this is, for example, some of the things that you have an option to. So we're going to kind of go through a majority of these just to look at it. But each one of those will tell you what that test is, what it's good for. So if you're looking for something, you can go here to this page, and again, you can click on any of the blue links, and it'll take you to whichever test you've clicked on. So normally, number one is test results. This is one we're normally going to use. So another option that often is a problem is going to be this, and I kid you not. I said, let me see if I can find an example of this. The very first teacher in all of the teachers, I put in the letter A, and the very first teacher, this is actually their account as of last night. What's wrong with this result?
They're in school year 18, 19.
Exactly right. They have not changed school years yet. They're still in 18, 19. And so, yeah, if they go to the assessments, they're not going to see the assessment that they need this year, and their kids are going to be a little bit different because it's actually last year's test. So it's easy to fix, right? Easy to fix. The other thing is right there where you see where it says current. So you're just going to click on the arrow, and it's going to open this up. You have two choices. You have current, which is the kids that are sitting in my class right now. But you also have year to date. Any child who's been in my class since the beginning of the school term when we rolled over, whether or not I've even met that child. So you know in high school, they'll put a bunch of kids in one room, and then they're like, oh, we're going to change teachers. We'll take them out of that room, put them over here. Oh, right in the middle of the teacher, we're going to split that class. Every one of those children is now going to be in that roster for year to date. So you have teachers like, there's children showing up in my roster, and they're not my children, and they have bad scores. I don't want them included in my stuff. Check here, because it's probably marked year to date. So two things you would change would be make sure it's on 1920 and make sure it's on current. And once you do that, it's going to look like that, SIS, Student Information Service or Systems, and 1920, and it's current. Once you do that, hit apply. And that'll change the year, and it'll stay that way. That'll be the default for the rest of the year. The other thing is when you choose reports, is changing the actual test result. So this one, for example, is the BIB ELA 3rd grade Unit 1 assessment. If that's not what I want, I'm going to click on the down arrow next to the assessment, and then this window is going to pop up. So my options are, I can change the subject, so I can do math, science, social studies, and anything else. This one is ELA. Then click on the assessment. All the available assessments for that teacher or for you is going to come up. And then let's say I want argumentative writing pre-assessment. I'll just click on that and hit apply. Now all my results are for that test. For test results, this is going to be the first item that's going to show up. This is an easy way to check where every student was, like overall. So here you can see that of this information, 163 students took this test, and 96 of them were deficient, 23 were struggling, 44 were proficient. Now again, those titles, the performance levels, are going to change based on how we built them. So your individual teachers may have their own performance level that they created. If it's a unit assessment at the district level, most of them are pretty much on target, the same. But they can negotiate based on like the milestone cut rates. So the performance targets may be slightly different. You'll also see sometimes we'll have more than one performance target where we'll change it. So we'll have like the cut rate at 70 and we might have a cut rate at 65. So depending, we can change those different levels to make it look different. If you click on any one of these, it'll sort your scores. So let's say I only want to see the people who are in red or have low scores. You can click on that, and now all the students at the bottom will be only the ones that are in red. You can mark them, put them in a group, and now you have the study group. You can also change, if you don't want the pie chart, you can click up here and change to a bar graph. You can do a stack bar graph, you can do a sidebar graph, you can do a circle graph, any type that you want to go with. Under the tool, there's some other options that you want to lay things out differently. You can go there as well. These are some of the different items. So this is test results, but know that you also have the item analysis, feedback cards, and standard analysis is available as well. So we can, there we go. So this is the student response tab. I'll tell you, I made up a test, and I took the test, and I took it in 6 seconds. So when you look at this, this is, for example, this is my test student. I'm just looking at like my raw score. The district average was a 2, and I made a 2. That was my score. My time, I spent 4 seconds, and it was a multiple choice. Question 1. Question 2 is multiple choice. Those are the answers. So student response, you can just kind of go through and kind of get some general information that way. This is the feedback card, and if we have it open, sometimes, in some cases, like last year, they were not necessarily open at the beginning, because once we open the feedback card, then everything's open. You can look at the test, you can print out the test, we really unlock it, and we have no control over what happens to the information. So it's an option, and it's up to the content coordinators or the unit test, whether or not they're going to share the information. But so far this year, everything's been open, and you can share it anytime you want to. You can print this out and give it out to your parents if you're having an open house night or something. And it looks at mastery for standards. So again, this is the test I took with the 5 questions. You'll notice my average score was below target. And these are the student responses, but those are the correct responses. Not going to help you much if you don't have a copy of the test. So that's why it may be helpful to have the test so the students can go back over it. But this tells you that these are the standards I had problems with. This is the one standard I got right. So depending on all of the questions, if they're all on the same standard, it would feed into that whether or not I mastered it or not. But this is the feedback card option, and good for you to have. The next one is standard analysis. So let's say we want to look at standards. And so when we're unpacking the information for our classes, we want to see like which one of these standards would I spend a whole lot of time on, 1.1? Or would I spend my time on 1.1.3? I'd go here, technically. So again, you can look. Again, you can create groups. You can put check marks by the students that mastered it, and those can be accelerated. You can export out a group or save a group. You can also go through the ones that did not master it, and they could be your circle back study group. So that's what we mean by, yes, ma'am?
Okay, I have a question, and
Yeah.
it's kind of related, and then it's kind of not.
That's all right.
So, the benchmarks that the kids were taking last year and the year before, how closely did their results on the benchmark exam mirror how they performed on the Georgia milestones? Or have we looked at that, or?
We looked at some of that. What we did look at was the validity and reliability of the assessments themselves. So what we did, that's a great question.
We haven't fully analyzed because we moved on to a different form of assessment, and we were also looking at, we were using STAR as well.
Okay.
But what we did with the benchmarks, especially the ones 2 years ago, and then I did it oddly enough for an assessment class I was in as well. We looked at the validity and the reliability of the exams themselves. So what we did is we saw, were the exams aligned to the standards? So did they test what they were supposed to test? And then did students perform how we thought they were going to perform based on where they were in class and what they had done on previous exams? And we found out that they were all the tests were valid, and they were extremely reliable. So we should see, in extrapolating that out, we should see a correlation to how students did on the test, on those benchmarks, to how well they did on the assessments. The problem that I would tell you that we would have is if I said, well, we'll go back in and look at the descriptors that we had in School City and see if they fell in the same category, they weren't apples to apples. So what we have to look at is were they reliable and were they valid? And then did they correlate? And so I would say, for the most part, they did.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
But that's a great question, by the way. Thank you.
It is, and something that this year we may look at again,
Yeah,
so we can tell you better.
We do try to do, as part of that,
As part of that evaluation side of the house, we do try to look at different things like that. Like we've looked at STAR to see the correlation with STAR to how they do. Because this is recorded, I'll just tell you that the reliability is better at the elementary level than it is at the middle and the high school level. Okay? So the predictability is better at the lower grades than it is at the upper grades. Not trying to defame it, but that's just what we find now. Is that because of the test or is it because of the students? I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is looking at the results. But Dr. Jones, data-driven guy, he's going to want, that's where we did this validity and reliability study. Can I share a quick story real quick? I know Susan wants to get up and talk. I was actually on vacation, okay? I was in Cuba, actually, on vacation, and after the first set of assessments 2 years ago, Dr. Jones stopped in and asked Dara, because we'd gotten all these reports from the schools that these things were so far off base. They contacted me through email because it was the only way you could get a hold of me while I was in Cuba. And we got back, hit the ground running, and we did a validity and reliability study in about 48 hours on the first set of progress assessments to find out that they were spot on. So it was actually performance by the students, not performance by the test.
Thank you.
thank you.
But good question, and things that we are looking at. All right, so again, back to standard analysis. So this was my 5-question test. So you can see when you pull up, this is for item analysis. I want to look at the individual item. You can see the ones that were correct, the ones that were incorrect. This is what a normal page is going to look like with a lot of questions. So I mean, I think this one had like 50 questions. I just snipped a piece of it. But that's what it's going to look like. But you can see like what questions do we really need to be focusing in on. Like for example, this one, question 13. I would take a look at that. I would try to see, can I figure out, have we just not taught that, or do I not teach it stringently enough, or what's going on with that question? But things to look at. Yes, ma'am?
In the settings on that screen, can you change it to show numbers and not percents? Like if you look at the item analysis, where it breaks it down, like below this graph, the section below,
This part?
That part. Can you change it to where it will show numbers instead of percent?
The number of questions correct?
No,
It's-
number of
this
kids
is
who
a-
got that question correct. You see where it says 0%, and then it says 100% chose B? Well, if you have one where it's like 24.7%, like how many kids versus the percent of the kids?
Good question. I don't know, but we can find out.
Or they just
Or-
have to do the math.
Well,
That's what
I was just sitting with a teacher and I'm working with a teacher, so I was just going through her test, and I have to click on each one to go. It'll tell you when you click on each individual question, but you're gonna have to click each one and go and look at it and tell you how many it is. Or like you say, multiply it by the total.
Yeah, for the, most of these items, you can export it to like an Excel or CSV file, and then look at that and maybe sort it. So I would say that might be helpful, because you can mostly download and export all of these reports. If you're looking at this and you want to see what the standard is that they tested on, just hover over the standard, and it'll pop up and it'll read the standard. And if you want to see what was question number 1, just click on question number 1, and that question's going to pop up. It'll give you the actual question. It'll give you the answer choices. If you want to see what level, DOK level it was, it will have all of that information, its reliability, etc. So you can go in individually now and look at the different questions here. This just kind of gives you an item, so which ones were percentage were correct, etc. And if you need resources, you can go to the little globe and find resources, all of that standard. There are summary reports. You can look at student performance and sort it by that, or you can also look at the content standards. So when you go to the summary, depending on what you're trying to find, you can go through and resort it, and then again, you can export it as you need to. So this is just a kind of a sampling of the different kinds of reports you can do, but you'll always notice it up on the top right, you see this, and this is the download. So just download it and download it in a CSV, and then you can sort it as you need to. So maybe there's something that, maybe you want to hide the students' names and you just want to give the information to the staff in general, then you can do it that way. It's very helpful. Or if you just need pieces of it, you can use that as well. You can filter it, drill down to sort any item. Just click on that tab and it'll sort it by that column. You can click on it again, it'll opposite. So if it's like high to low, it'll go low to high. So you can click on it and sort it that way. If you want to create groups, you can sort it and then check it off and then export it and create a group out of it. And then that way you have study groups. So for your teachers that help. So a lot of information, and I know that's what Susan's going to talk to you about, is once you get this information, then what do you do with it? So you can see that there's a lot available. And I would tell you that the help button is your friend. So if you go to that blue question mark, all of these reports, there's webinars that go through each one of these reports and tell you how to access it, how to sort it in much more detail than I'm going over here. So if you have any questions, feel free to look it up. Watch the webinar. They're like 30 minutes a piece at most, and it'll be very helpful to you. This is also new, and I'm just going to be like real honest with you. I'm not like 100% up to speed on this. It's new. It's called the PRA, and you'll see it's like a human head up at the top, and it says PRA, and it's Personalized Review Assignments. When a teacher creates a test, you can actually go in and add resources, and then you can go back and assign students by the standards that they missed, and then they can log into their toolbox or their page, and it'll have any assignments already there for them. So this is something, I see this coming, and more people will be familiar, and we'll have the opportunity to share this with you. But it is there, so if you want to click on it and look at it, it's something to think about, and something that, as a group, it may be something we want to look at. But that's all available. Now, I did talk to you a little bit about student history. So again, up at the top, we were up under predefined, where all of those reports were. Now I'm moving down here to student history. So this is helpful a lot of times when you're looking. You can go under, I actually have a test student. So I searched by his name, Testu, and this one actually came up. So in this case, this is his grade, his date of birth, etc. I can either click on his name, either one, first or last, it'll pull him up because it's hyperlinked, or I can click on the eyeball to view him, and I can go that way as well. Once I pull him up, some of the things that I can see here is that if I click on all assessments, it'll show all of the assessments that he's taken that we've uploaded. I can sort it out if I just want to see what his local assessments. He didn't take any state assessments, so they're not here, but if he did, there'd be a tab for state assessments, so all of his milestones would also be included there, and anything else that we choose to upload. If we wanted to upload any other scores, they would also be here. So if I'm a new teacher, I can look at SLDS and see how he did on milestones, but I could also just pull this up if I'm looking at it, and they should also be here as well. So you can look at that. You can also see like this student's averaging out pretty much below target. So maybe this is one I want to identify as needing some additional skills. The other thing I can look at, and I can hide one, like if I want to take one test out, like it's not relevant. So I can hide it and just print the things that I need. And up here I can send this out. I can go back to change roster and go back to the students. There's a video about this. I watched it yesterday. Very helpful. This is where I got some of these screenshots from. This one is helpful to me. So when y'all call and say that I have a student that the teacher tried to activate the test and that student's not there, I go here to class schedule because it's going to tell me this is what the computer is actually thinking. So like let's say I see he's got 6 classes but there's no math class. Then something's wrong, I know, with the math class, but it's in an Infinite Campus because it's come from there. If he was in a different teacher's room, it might show it, but under a different teacher's name, and that's again where you have like this teacher took over a class, and so it's still showing under the other person's name. So then I can say, oh, that's the problem. They're in Mrs. Smith's class, and this is Mrs. Jones that can't see him. So the class schedule shows you everybody where they're at. Very helpful here. And lastly is the accommodations tab. So you can add accommodations for a student that will follow them unless changed for the rest of the school year. So let's say this child gets extended time or they get text-to-speech, then you can go in and create an accommodations profile for them, and that's going to follow them whenever they take a test for the rest of the school year. Next year, it doesn't follow the next year because that's a new roster. This child has no accommodation profile, but this child does. So when I go here, there you go. This is what it looks like. So student history, you can see that include for the duration for the rest of the school year, the things that they have as far as tools and what's marked for them. And you can put it just in English, you can put it just in math or in the other 2 classes. You can also do translation where, let's say you have a Hispanic student. We have languages as English, French, and Spanish, so you can also put a translator on it. So if you have a new student and you want to help them out with that, you can also translate everything to their native language out of those languages. But that one again will follow, you edit it, and then of course save it. And that brings me to the end. All right, what questions do we have? Mind blown? Everybody good with that? All right. Well, you know, if you have any questions, you can always call Tony Jones. Call Tony. Or you can call me. And just like I'm here today, if you call me, you're not going to get me, obviously. So I always say call. And if I don't answer, email me. Because while I was here, I fixed 2 problems this morning. So call and email at the same time. If you can't get either of us, and it's really important, call Rhonda. She'll be able to tell you where we are and try to find us if it's an emergency. And then, I don't know if you have this number, but it's a good number to have, that 8737. That's our REAA customer support line. That's especially helpful when you're doing your student records and student class time and you're having problems. The Infinite Campus folks, because I would say I've stopped answering it during any other time than testing because 99% of it is I can't log into my account on Infinite Campus. So, but that's a number that you can call, and that rings all 3 of the Infinite Campus desks. So somebody will answer it.
It actually rings on every desk in the office.
There you go.
You can give that to parents too, if they're having trouble with registration or Infinite Campus. You can give it to teachers if they're having trouble with Infinite Campus, because it'll ring on all of them and that one will pick it up. It's really our helpline to support, and that way in case they can't get a hold of us, because we are on the phone, especially during peak times.
Absolutely. But that's a helpful number. If you don't have it, you might want to put that in your stuff. And other than that, I thank you for being here. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. And
Can we take about a 10-minute break? When we're doing that, I just need a little room arrangement because it's collaborative what we're gonna be doing. So I was just thinking, Dr. Peck and Dr. Sneed, during the break, do y'all mind coming this way? Vicki, do you mind going over there? And do the 2 of you mind going up there? That'll give me 3s and 4s.